Welcome to the Recaps channel. In today's video, we'll recap about time. Let's get started. Tim Lake lives in a seaside house in Cornwall with his father James, mother Mary, absent-minded uncle Desmond, and free-spirited younger sister Catherine or Kit Kat. Every year, they host a New Year's Eve party for family and friends. When the countdown to the new year begins, a girl named Polly, whom Tim has been dancing with, leans in for a kiss. However, Tim shakes her hand instead, disappointing her. The next day, Tim wakes up feeling embarrassed and hungover. His father calls him into his study. James reveals to Tim that the men in their family, including Tim, have the ability to travel back in time to moments they have already experienced. To do this, they need to go to a dark place, like a large cupboard, think of the desired time and place, and they will find themselves there. Tim initially thinks his father is joking and shakes his head in disbelief, but when he enters the closet and thinks of the New Year's Eve party from the previous night, he comes out of the closet and finds himself back at the party. He even kisses Polly during the countdown. Convinced that time travel is real, Tim listens to his father's experiences with the ability. James advises Tim not to use it for personal gain, so Tim decides to use it to find love. During the summer, Kit Kat invites Charlotte, her boyfriend's cousin, to stay at their beach house. Tim tries to impress Charlotte but repeatedly fails. On Charlotte's last day, Tim attempts to confess his feelings, but Charlotte reveals that Kit Kat warned her about it beforehand. Feeling rejected, Tim travels back in time to confess to Charlotte earlier in the summer. However, Charlotte suggests that he should ask again on her last night at the house. Tim realizes that he never had a chance with Charlotte and eventually gives up on pursuing her. He then moves to London and stays with James' friend, Harry, but becomes disappointed to discover that Harry is a short-tempered playwright. In his first 6 months in London, Tim struggles with his career as a lawyer and has no luck in romance. However, his luck changes when Jay takes him to a restaurant called Dawn Le Noir, where guests dine in complete darkness. Here, they sit next to a woman named Mary and her friend Joanna. In the darkness, Tim and Mary connect and have a great time. After dinner, Tim and Jay finally meet the girls face to face. Tim is amazed by Mary's appearance, and it's clear that there is a strong attraction between them. Mary gives him her phone number before they part ways. Tim happily walks home, but his mood quickly changes when he encounters Harry's angry reaction. Harry's play had been ruined by the lead actor forgetting his lines. Wanting to help, Tim travels back in time to the theater just before opening night. He approaches the lead actor, Tom, and convinces him to rehearse his lines. The play turns out to be a success. However, when Tim checks his phone, he realizes that Mary's number is no longer there. The next day, Harry shows him a newspaper with an advertisement for a Kate Moss exhibition. Remembering that Mary is a fan of Kate Moss, Tim spends a week at the exhibit, hoping to run into her. Finally, after a whole week, Mary shows up, and Tim nervously approaches her. Unfortunately, their interaction doesn't go well, and Tim learns that Mary now has a boyfriend named Rupert. He discovers that Mary met Rupert at Joanna's party. Determined to change the course of events, Tim travels back in time to prevent the party from happening. He goes to Joanna's apartment and convinces Mary to leave the party with him before Rupert arrives. Mary hesitates but feels drawn to him. As they leave, they pass by Rupert, unaware that he just walked past his future girlfriend. They have a lovely dinner together and continue getting to know each other. Tim walks Mary home, and she invites him up to her apartment. Things become intimate between them, but Tim's clumsiness leads to an awkward first sexual encounter. Not satisfied with the outcome, Tim decides to try again by going back in time. This time, he avoids tripping over Mary's shoes and quickly undresses her. Everything goes smoothly, but Tim realizes he can do even better. After multiple attempts, they finally have a perfect first night together. Their relationship blossoms over the following months, and they eventually move in together. While at the theater with a coworker named Rory, Tim unexpectedly encounters Charlotte, but their conversation becomes awkward. He tries a second time, but it doesn't go well either. On his third attempt, he decides not to approach her, and Charlotte notices him instead, initiating the conversation. She invites him to dinner and expresses regret for turning him down in the past. Charlotte asks Tim to accompany her to her apartment, but he declines, realizing his deep love for Mary. Tim rushes home and wakes Mary up to propose to her. The first proposal doesn't go as romantically as he hoped, so he does it again. The second time, she says yes. That summer, Tim introduces Mary to his parents. Mary gets along well with Tim's mother, and Tim spends quality time with his father. Surprisingly, Kit Kat is also home after having a rough time in London. The Lake family celebrates Tim and Mary's wedding and Mary's pregnancy. Despite the storm during the ceremony and reception, their wedding is filled with romance and laughter. The tent is damaged by the wind, forcing everyone to seek shelter in the house. Tim uses time travel to change his best man choice after Rory, Harry, and Jay mess up their speeches. Eventually, he selects his father. Months later, Mary gives birth to their daughter, Posy. Tim is captivated by the joys and challenges of raising a child. They move to a new house, and it's soon time for Posy's first birthday party. All the guests arrive, except Kit Kat, who is late. Instead of Kit Kat, Tim opens the door to her troublesome boyfriend, Jimmy. Kit Kat had a fight with Jimmy and had been drinking, causing her to crash her car on her way to Tim's house. To help her, Tim goes back in time and picks her up from her home, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem of Kit Kat's drinking and unhappy relationship with Jimmy. Tim tries to talk to his sister, but when that fails, he takes her back in time to the New Year's Eve party where she first met Jimmy. Instead of flirting, she expresses her anger and punches him, even though he doesn't remember her in this timeline. Returning to the present, Kit Kat realizes her feelings for Jay and starts dating him, leading to a better relationship. Tim, having saved his sister's life and happiness, returns home but discovers that he now has a son instead of Posy. Distressed by this realization, he goes back in time to speak with his father, James, who confirms that any changes made before Posy's birth will result in a different child being conceived. To keep Posy, Tim must not alter anything that happened before her birth. Reluctant to lose the daughter he knows, Tim reverses the changes he made to Kit Kat's life and allows her car accident to occur. Tim and Mary support Kit Kat during her hospitalization, and this leads her to decide to change her life for the better. Remembering the alternate timeline where she is happy with Jay, Tim encourages Kit Kat to pursue a relationship with him. Returning home from the hospital, Tim cherishes his daughter's presence and is inspired to have another child. Despite Mary's initial objections, they conceive their son 2 years later. One evening, Tim accidentally leaves Posy downstairs, and she destroys a manuscript from Mary's office just as they are preparing to meet a best-selling author from Mary's company. Tim considers using time travel to fix the situation, but they receive a call informing them that James has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Tim, Mary, and Kit Kat visit the beach house, where Tim speaks with his father about their time-traveling abilities. They realize that time travel cannot cure James' cancer without risking Tim and Kit Kat's existence. Ultimately, they learn that time travel cannot fix all of life's challenges. James imparts important lessons to Tim, to experience life as normally as possible, with its everyday tensions and worries, and to revisit moments while appreciating the beauty of the world. Tim follows his father's advice and finds happiness in both ordinary and special moments. However, there are some days he doesn't wish to relive, such as the day his father passed away. Unwilling to say goodbye, Tim travels back in time to spend time with his father while he is still in good health. After the death of James, Tim finds solace in the fact that he can still visit his father in the past whenever he misses him. However, one day Mary expresses her desire to have a third child. Tim realizes that having another child will prevent him from visiting his father in the past. After much contemplation, he decides to let go of the past and embrace the future, agreeing to have another child with Mary. Months later, Mary is heavily pregnant and the time for her to give birth is approaching. Tim realizes that this is his final opportunity to visit his father in the past. He travels back in time and plays table tennis with his father for the last time. James sees the sadness in Tim's eyes and understands that this is their final encounter. He accepts the situation and expresses his agreement with Tim's decision. As a special treat, they both journey back in time to when Tim was a young boy. Full of vitality and good health, James and Tim run and play on the beach, savoring their final moments together. Tim bids his last farewell to his father and returns to the present, where his third child is born. Years go by, and Tim continues to live his life normally, sharing both moments of joy and tears with his family. His family is complete with Mary, and Kit Kat also gives birth to her child with Jay. One morning, Tim allows Mary to sleep in and prepares breakfast for their children, relishing in their presence. He decides to refrain from time travel, cherishing each day as if it's a second chance. This time, he focuses on appreciating life, finding joy in both significant events and the smallest details. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share if you enjoyed the video. See you again here on the Recaps channel.